Welcome to IMRAN STAR Video, or as we call it, ISVI, the collaborative lens on Vancouver, unfiltered, unscripted, and powered by community. We're not just a voice behind the mic. We're a collective of creators, thinkers, storytellers, and city lovers coming together to spotlight the people, places, and energy that make Vancouver what it is. From coast mountain skylines to neon-lit backstreets, we're covering everything from downtown buzz to the untold stories shaping our scene. You'll find us exclusively on YouTube. No algorithms, no filters, just real talk. For behind the scenes, updates, and chaotic brilliance in real time, follow us on TikTok and Instagram. So hit subscribe, drop a comment, and help us grow from 100 to 10,000 and beyond. Because this isn't just our platform, it's yours too. Turn it up. Get into it. Let's talk Vancouver. This is ISVI. Let's be real. When people think of Vancouver, they usually picture snow-capped mountains, overachieving nature trails, and someone named Sierra drinking a turmeric latte while posting about wellness. And yes, the city is pretty enough to make your phone storage cry, but beneath the scenic flex and yoga in the park energy, Vancouver is dramatic in the best way possible. Like not just an astrology Twitter thread kind of dramatic. We're talking theater, baby. That's right. While your For You page may think this city's only talent is for hiking and trauma bonding over real estate, Vancouver's got a performing arts scene that slaps harder than a final act plot twist. From Shakespeare by the beach to experimental monologues delivered in converted bike shops, Vancouver is full of creatives doing the most and doing it live 8 shows a week. We're talking big theaters that smell like history and ambition. Black box studios where the stage is also the exit. Dance floors that double as protest platforms. This city might not scream Broadway, but it does whisper with purpose. You're about to feel something in a seat that costs less than a movie ticket. And yes, Vancouver's theater scene has its quirks. The budget's tight, the props are sometimes held together with gaffer tape and hope, and at least one person in every cast also works at a nearby cafe. But the talent, undeniable. The energy, unhinged in the best way. The drama, as local and organic as the kale at your overpriced farmer's market. In this exploration, we'll pull back the curtain on Vancouver's theater and performing arts world. From the iconic institutions to the fringe weirdos, we love them, the ballet shoes to the drag heels and everything in between. So whether you're a full-on theater kid or just someone who claps politely when the lights go up, buckle in, because Vancouver's stages are small, but the drama is absolutely huge. Before Vancouver had contemporary dance showcases, immersive drag cabarets, or indie plays with titles like My Feelings Have Feelings, it had, well, settlers in starch collars doing Shakespeare in makeshift tents. Yes, the origins of Vancouver's performing arts scene were basically colonial cosplay meets British theater dreams, and they started with more drama off stage than on. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, as the city was being developed, read indigenous land being violently taken and repurposed. Theater was largely imported, aka white dudes doing Hamlet while the city was still being paved. Performance spaces were limited and cultural diversity in programming, not even a concept. If you weren't into Shakespeare, Victorian morality plays, or awkward musical comedy, you were out of luck. Things picked up by the mid-20th century with more structured institutions forming. Cue the Vancouver Playhouse, founded in 1962, which quickly became the city's bougie theater nucleus. It was known for serious plays and being the go-to space if you owned a cashmere turtleneck and wanted to be seen nodding thoughtfully at Chekhov. Meanwhile, the Arts Club Theater, launched in 1958, was cooking up a different flavor, bolder, more contemporary, and eventually a powerhouse for new Canadian works. It was less, let's perform the canon, and more, what if the canon had a sense of humor and wore skinny jeans? And then came the glorious, gritty curveball, the Vancouver Fringe Festival, established in 1985. It was like someone handed the keys to theater over to the weird kids, the broke kids, the queer kids, and the artists who thought proscenium arches were a prison. Suddenly, you had plays in alleyways, musicals in cafes, and one-person shows in bathrooms, and we were all better for it. At the same time, the scene began to shift. Finally, Indigenous, immigrant, and marginalized voices started carving space into the narrative, no longer satisfied with being included in someone else's version of Vancouver. Groups like Full Circle, First Nations performance and festivals like Talking Stick emerged, reclaiming theater as a space for ancestral storytelling, language, and resistance. Because believe it or not, theater isn't just for old white men monologuing about war guilt. It can also be about land, ceremony, and identity, performed with depth, rage, and joy. By the 2000s, Vancouver's theater scene had gone full multiverse. Traditional, experimental, decolonial, digital, weird, wonderful, and everything in between. From queer cabarets to site-specific horror plays to heartfelt community-based productions that actually listen to their audience, the city had officially decided if it can be staged, it will be. So yes, Vancouver's theatrical history may have started off painfully beige, but it evolved into a full color spectrum of storytelling. Messy, passionate, often underfunded, but deeply alive. And in a city where people sometimes act like culture starts and ends with the film industry, this scene has been quietly stealing the spotlight, one standing ovation at a time. Every city's got its theater darlings, the institutions with the legacy, the drama, and the lighting budget. In Vancouver, they don't just put on shows, they run the art scene like it's a high-stakes episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, with slightly more Shakespeare and slightly fewer sequins. These are the venues where actors cry on cue, audiences clap like their rent depends on it, and ghosts allegedly haunt the wings because of course they do. It's theater. Let's start with the Arts Club Theater Company, aka Vancouver's theatrical Beyoncé. Founded in 1958 and based primarily on Granville Island with satellite venues elsewhere, Arts Club is where big Canadian plays go to feel important. Their productions range from classic bangers, Les Mis, The Sound of Music, to fresh Canadian debuts that make you feel culturally superior for having seen them before the Netflix adaptation. This is where your mom, your boss, and that guy who always quotes Oscar Wilde go to feel classy. Then there's Bard on the Beach, Vancouver's answer to the question, what if Shakespeare, but hot, outdoors, and sometimes attacked by seagulls? Founded in 1990 and staged under giant tents in Vanier Park, Bard is what happens when Elizabethan drama meets West Coast granola energy. The actors wear corsets, but they also do yoga between matinees. Come for the soliloquies, stay for the killer sunset views, and the smug thrill of watching Macbeth while surrounded by waterfront condos. Feeling experimental? The Cultch, short for Vancouver East Cultural Centre, is where traditional theatre goes to get weird, in the best way possible. Located in East Van and housed in a converted church, because of course, the Cultch is the home of avant-garde, queer, BIPOC, neurodivergent, and genre-defying storytelling. One night, it's an interactive drag musical. The next, it's a wordless puppet nightmare about climate change, and somehow both will emotionally wreck you. It's also where Vancouver's cool art kids congregate when they're not making zines or DJing in a shipping container. Speaking of boundary pushing, Push, International Performing Arts Festival, is like the Met Gala of the Vancouver performance scene. Bold, niche, aggressively curated, and kind of intimidating in a do I clap now way. Taking over stages and non-stages across the city every January, Push brings in cutting-edge performances from around the world that blur the lines between dance, theater, multimedia, and emotional spirals. If you leave a Push show and know exactly what happened, congrats. You're either brilliant or lying. Let's not forget Firehall Arts Center, a fiercely community-driven venue known for punching far above its funding. Located in the downtown Eastside and proudly rooted in social justice, Firehall has long been a haven for Indigenous stories, immigrant voices, and works that actually engage with Vancouver's real-world issues like housing, racism, and why does this city feel like a fever dream on a Tuesday? Rounding out the All-Stars, Studio 58, Langara College's professional theater training program that cranks out talent like an emotionally intense Hogwarts. Gateway Theatre in Richmond, serving up bilingual and intercultural productions that reflect the city's diversity. Finally, Scotiabank Dance Centre, technically dance, but so iconic it deserves a standing ovation and a shout-out. These venues are more than just buildings. They're stages for cultural battles, artistic revelations, and at least one tech rehearsal meltdown per week. They're where Vancouver's artists dare to take risks, and where audiences go to feel things they can't put into words, or occasionally to nap politely during Act 2. So the next time someone tells you Vancouver has no real culture, kindly escort them to any of these spots, hand them a program, and let the standing ovations speak for themselves. Let's be honest, as great as the big theater houses are, sometimes you want something less bougie blazer and wine reception and more. Is that actor crying, or is that part of the show? Enter Vancouver's indie and fringe theater scene, the messy, magical, occasionally unhinged underbelly of the performing arts world, where rent is low, emotions are high, and anything, yes, anything, can be a stage. The Vancouver Fringe Festival, established in 1985, is basically Coachella for local theater gremlins. It's the one time of year when the city collectively agrees that a beer tent, a rope light, and a 1-hour monologue about intergenerational trauma performed in a broom closet absolutely counts as a night out. No gatekeeping, no polished perfection, just artists putting their entire souls and probably their last $40 into shows that range from laugh until you snort comedies to I need a moment alone existential dramas. And the Fringe isn't just fun, it's fierce. It's where creators take risks you'd never see on a subscription season stage. We're talking site-specific theater in parking lots, immersive shows in alleyways, and performances that involve the audience, a blender and a symbolic reckoning with capitalism. True story. It's like Tumblr and a live TED Talk had a baby and gave it a $300 arts grant. But Fringe isn't just a festival, it's a vibe. Across the city, you'll find indie companies staging work in church basements, bike shops, bookstores, and whatever random spaces will let them plug in a single lamp and call it lighting design. It's theater with duct tape and feelings. And out it shakshi slaps. Whether it's a two-hander about queer identity performed in a stairwell or a silent dance piece scored by live accordion in a laneway, this is the kind of art that reminds you why live performance still matters. A huge part of the indie explosion has come from queer, BIPOC, and disabled artists kicking the theatrical door down and saying, actually, this is our stage now. And rightly so. These artists aren't waiting for permission from the institutions. They're building new spaces all together, new collectives, new narratives, new aesthetics. Vancouver's indie scene is where you'll see stories about trans joy, settler colonialism, chronic illness, and neurodivergence told not as afterthoughts, but as the main event. And sure, indie shows don't always have money for elaborate sets or Broadway-style belting, but what they do have is heart and rage and tenacity, and actors who will absolutely give you a full-body performance while their mic cuts out and the audience sits on folding chairs from Craigslist, because it's not about the polish, it's about the punch. Vancouver's indie and fringe theater isn't afraid to get weird, get political, or get deeply personal. It's theater for the chronically online, the culturally starved, and the emotionally over-caffeinated. And in a city where art often has to fight just to survive, this scene is the fight. Glitter-stained, underfunded, and unshakably brilliant. Let's pivot, literally. Because while theater folks are monologuing their feelings in alleyways, Vancouver's dance and performance artists are out here expressing entire dissertations with just a pointed toe, a shoulder roll, and 30 seconds of deeply symbolic floor contact. In a city where words can get lost in noise, movement has become a language of resistance, identity, and beautifully controlled chaos. At the center of this physical storytelling universe sits the Dance Center and its shiny sibling, the Scotiabank Dance Center, which sounds like a bank, but is actually where artists throw their bodies around in extremely artistic and underfunded ways. These venues host everything from contemporary masterpieces and indigenous choreography to site-specific performances where someone dances while clinging to a stair railing like it owes them rent. And honestly, it does. Let's give a bow to Ballet BC, Vancouver's resident ballet company. Sleek, powerful, and modern enough to make your high school nutcracker flashbacks feel wildly outdated. They're not just doing twirls and tiaras, they're out here exploring grief, identity, gender, and climate anxiety on point. It's ballet with emotional damage and killer core strength, and we are here for it. But beyond the traditional stage, Vancouver's dance scene is vibing in all directions, from crump battles in community centers to contemporary fusion rooted in South Asian classical movement. This city's dancers are remixing the form with no respect for boundaries, and that's the point. You'll find indigenous performers incorporating land-based movement, drag artists blurring the line between lip sync and full-on choreography, and experimental movers creating pieces that involve rope, projection mapping, and the occasional spontaneous scream. And let's talk about performance art, the chaotic cousin of dance and theater, where rules are more of a suggestion. This is the space where bodies become paintbrushes, stages become protests, and someone inevitably eats a flower while making you question the meaning of capitalism. Performance art in Vancouver thrives at intersections of identity, of history, of activism. It's not always fun, but it will absolutely leave you spiraling in a good way. This is also where drag enters the group chat. Vancouver's drag scene isn't just RuPaul cosplay. It's performance, satire, political commentary, and a full-body theater production crammed into a 7-minute lip sync. From East Van drag collectives to Two-Spirit and BIPOC-led cabarets, this city's queens, kings, and in-betweens are using the stage to do what institutions rarely do: make space, make art, and make you question everything in heels. So yeah, Vancouver's performing arts scene isn't just about who can cry on cue. It's also about who can build an entire narrative arc out of a pirouette, a strobe light, and some industrial strength fog. It's raw, it's experimental, it's sweaty in a meaningful way, and it's reminding us all that art doesn't have to be spoken to be loud. For all its passion, innovation, and emotional stage dives, Vancouver's performing arts scene isn't exactly living its best financial life. Behind every moving monologue or powerful dance solo is an artist who's juggling 3 side hustles, writing grant applications at 2 a.m., and wondering if they can expense their therapy bill. Because let's be real, being a working artist in Vancouver is like doing a trust fall off a stage, except no one's always there to catch you, and the floor is gentrification. Let's start with the big one, funding. The performing arts are notoriously underfunded across Canada, but Vancouver takes it to Olympic levels of figure it out. Most theater companies and indie artists rely on a combo of inconsistent government grants, crowdfunding, and the occasional rich aunt. Meanwhile, arts organizations are expected to deliver high-impact, community-driven, diverse programming on a budget that wouldn't even cover 1 month's rent in Mount Pleasant. Spoiler, vibes are not a line item on a grant form. And speaking of rent, Vancouver's affordability crisis is like a recurring villain in this drama. Studios are disappearing, venues are folding, and artists are getting pushed out of the city they helped make cool in the first place. If you've ever seen a show staged in what looks like a repurposed dentist office, that's not avant-garde, that's survival. Every month, it feels like a new rehearsal space gets replaced by a luxury dog spa or a vegan juice bar called something like Cal. Then there's the issue of audience engagement, especially in the post-COVID, wait, do I still go outside era. Theaters are open, but audiences are cautious. And if we're being honest, many are distracted by Netflix, TikTok, and the soul-sucking abyss that is real estate TikTok. Convincing people to put on pants and leave the house for live performance is a battle, even when the show includes confetti cannons, sword fights, and raw emotional breakdowns, in character mostly. On top of all that, equity and representation remain uphill battles. For years, many Vancouver institutions operated on autopilot, staging the same playwrights, casting the same faces, programming the same narratives. But as the city's population continues to diversify, so too does the demand for stories that reflect everyone, not just the well-funded and well-connected. That means real commitments, not just land acknowledgements read like someone's checking their email mid-sentence. There's progress, but it's slow, uneven, and often emotionally exhausting for BIPOC, queer, disabled, and otherwise marginalized artists who are still being asked to consult for free or explain why representation matters again. Hint, if you're asking for unpaid labor to help you be inclusive, you've already flopped. And yet, despite all the chaos, the broken funding models, the disappearing venues, the emails that begin with "unfortunately," and the emotional whiplash of performing to an audience of 7 and a dog, Vancouver's performing artists keep showing up. They make it work. They create anyway. Because the show must go on, even if the props are borrowed and the lead actor is also doing tech. Let's be clear, if the last time you supported theater involved a couch, a Disney Plus subscription, and you singing Defying Gravity with a plastic wine glass in hand, you might be part of the problem. Look, we love Hamilton too, but if you're quoting Lin-Manuel Miranda more than you're showing up to local performances, it's time for a vibe check. Supporting Vancouver's performing arts scene doesn't require a top hat, a trust fund, or the ability to explain what Brechttian alienation means, thank God. It just means you stop treating local theater like a side quest and start acting like it's part of the main storyline. First up, buy the ticket. Go to the show, show up physically, in person, with your face. Yes, that means leaving your apartment. Yes, even if it's raining, it is. Whether it's a polished main stage production or an indie piece called Crying in IKEA, a one-woman memoir, get in that seat. Your presence matters. Theater without an audience is just extremely expensive shadow puppetry. Next, bring a friend, or 3. Drag your roommate, your coworker, your hinge match. Local shows need butts in seats, and nothing says I'm emotionally available like supporting a struggling actor and pretending you totally understood that experimental clown piece. Now let's talk money. If you have even a little bit to spare, throw it at the arts like it's the last glitter cannon at a Fringe show. Donate. Buy merch. Tip the performers if it's that kind of event. Skip one $17 cocktail and instead fund someone's lighting rental for their solo show about ghost trauma. Oh, and stop asking artists to comp you. If your support of theater involves texting your friend the night of the show asking for a free ticket, you are not supporting theater. You are draining theater. Pay the cover. You wouldn't ask your dentist for a guest list spot, would you? Also crucial, engage with the work outside of the venue. Follow your fave companies and artists on social media. Share their upcoming shows. Hype them in the comments like you're their stage mom. Leave reviews that are more than it was good. Seriously, give us adjectives. Captivating, raw, unhinged in a brilliant way. And if you loved it, tell everyone. Word of mouth is the indie theater lifeblood. And don't sleep on the behind-the-scenes heroes. Tech crew, stage managers, costume designers, these people are the backbone of every production, and they deserve your respect and possibly snacks. If you see someone climbing a lighting rig while wearing a headset and holding 5 cue sheets, buy them a coffee. They've seen things. Finally, advocate. Speak up when arts funding is on the chopping block. Email your city councilor. Share petitions. Make noise. Because when governments try to tighten the budget, the arts are always first on the chopping block. And no one's cutting back on real estate developers, we promise. Bottom line, if you say you support the arts, prove it. With your time, your wallet, and your Instagram story, Vancouver's performing artists are doing the absolute most with the absolute least. And all they're asking is that you show up, clap like you mean it, and maybe cry in the dark with 40 strangers once in a while. That's not just support, that's community. At the end of the day, or more appropriately, the final blackout followed by a semi-awkward curtain call, Vancouver's performing arts scene is the chaotic, creative beating heart of a city that desperately needs more than brunch and real estate infographics to feel alive. Yes, this is a city of yoga studios, $7 drip coffee, and people who call their dogs fur babies. But it's also a city of drag kings, Shakespeare tents, barefoot dancers, clown poets, and indie playwrights monologuing about heartbreak, climate grief, and identity under one sad spotlight and a disco ball they found on Facebook Marketplace. And it's glorious. Vancouver's theater and performance scene isn't just alive, it's thriving in spite of everything. In spite of rent, in spite of budget cuts, in spite of city officials who think vibrant arts culture means painting a mural on a condo marketing flyer. The artists here keep showing up on stages, in parking lots, in converted laundromats, telling stories that matter, that challenge, and that sometimes leave you emotionally wrecked in the best possible way. Because here's the thing, Vancouver doesn't need to become the next Broadway or West End. It already is something special. It's weird, it's underdog, it's messy and heartfelt and deeply local. It's the theater kid who never got the lead role but kept going anyway. Built their own stage out of recycled plywood and filled every seat with people who finally saw themselves in the spotlight. So, next time you walk past a theater poster stapled to a hydro pole, or see a flyer for a one-act show that sounds both emotionally devastating and confusingly sexy, don't scroll past it. Show up, buy the ticket, laugh too loud, cry in the second row, be part of the standing ovation, even if you're not totally sure what just happened. Because all the city's a stage, and in Vancouver, that stage is on fire, queer, full of smoke machines, and absolutely worth watching. And just like that, the city's pulse slows, but the story doesn't stop. You've been watching IMRAN STAR video, where voices come together and the city speaks back. We're a crew, not a single face, a movement, not a moment. And every episode that's built with you, for you, by all of us. From the seawall to the skyline, from underground voices to rooftop vibes, we're telling the stories that don't make the news, but make the neighborhood. If this episode hit, pass it on. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram. Drop a comment and tell us what your Vancouver sounds like. We're building this together, clip by clip, story by story, from 100 to 10K to wherever this takes us. When we get there, we all show up. So until the next drop, stay loud, stay collective, and stay in it. This is ISVI Bunker signing off.